Welcome to Stillwater Chronicles. Tonight, we settle into a story about a man who should not have been able to speak, and the woman who should not have been able to hear herself in him. There is a particular silence that belongs only to hospitals at night, not the silence of empty rooms or sleeping houses. Something more specific than that. More deliberate. It is the silence of machines doing what people cannot. Breathing for someone. Measuring the intervals between heartbeats. Holding vigil without the need to rest. The monitors keep their quiet rhythms. The ventilators rise and fall. The overhead lights are dimmed to something merciful, and the corridors stretch long and pale in either direction. Unhurried, as though the building itself has agreed to slow down. Dr. Elisa knows this silence well. She has been a neurologist for 11 years. She has worked night rotations more times than she can count, in hospitals in Rome and in Florence, and now here. The neurological intensive care unit of a large hospital in the north of Milan, where the winters press close against the windows, and the city outside sounds very far away. She knows how to exist quietly within this kind of space, how to move through it without disturbing it, how to let it settle around her like water settling in a glass. But tonight, the silence feels different. She stands outside Bay 4, with a small digital recorder in her hand, and listens to the sound of a man breathing through a machine. His name is Marco. That is what his admission documents say. Marco, 43 years old, brought in 8 days ago following a traumatic head injury sustained in a road accident on the outskirts of the city. He'd been found at the roadside, already unconscious. By the time he arrived in her care, he was deeply insensible, GCS of 4, pupils sluggish but reactive, brain imaging showing diffuse axonal injury across multiple regions. The kind of injury that suggests a long recovery. The kind that sometimes suggests no recovery at all. She had told his family, a sister who came alone and sat very still in the relative's room, that they should prepare themselves for uncertainty, that she would do everything she could, that they should wait. And then, on the third night, Marco had spoken. Not words at first, just sounds, fragmented, low, almost below the threshold of hearing beneath the ventilator's rhythm. The night nurse had noted it in the chart. Intermittent vocalization. No clear semantic content. Possible semi-conscious arousal. Elisa had read it the following morning with the cautious interest she reserved for things that might be significant. She had adjusted his sedation slightly. She had asked the nurses to notify her if it happened again. It happened again. On the 4th night and the 5th. By the 6th night, there were words, still fragmented, still riding the edge of audibility, but words. The nurses had begun writing them down, though they could make little of them. A sequence of images, disconnected. A field, a window, something about water. Elisa had asked them to set a recorder by his bedside. She had listened to the first recording on her lunch break, in her small office with the door closed, headphones pressed against her ears. She had sat very still for the full 11 minutes of it. And when it was over, she had sat still for a little while longer. Then she had listened again. Now it is the 8th night. She stands outside Bay 4 and turns the recorder over in her hands. The bay is separated from the corridor by a glass partition, partially obscured by a drawn blind. Through the narrow gap at the blind's edge, she can see the ambient glow of Marco's monitoring screens. Green lines, steady numbers, the slow pulse of the cardiac trace. She can see the shape of him in the bed, still, as he always is, his chest rising and falling with the measured assistance of the ventilator. She has been standing here for 4 minutes. She knows, because she has been watching the corridor clock. She is not sure why she has not gone in yet. What she knows, what she has known with increasing certainty over the past 5 days, is this. The things Marco says in the night are not random. They are not the fragmentary outputs of a damaged brain, cycling through noise. They're coherent. They're sequential. They describe, with quiet and specific accuracy, a dream that Elisa has been having since she was 9 years old. The dream is not dramatic. That is perhaps the strangest part of it. It is simply this: a long corridor in a building she does not recognize, lit by windows that look out onto a garden where it is always late afternoon. The light through those windows is always the same: amber, low-angled, the particular gold of an autumn day just before the sun drops below the tree line. She walks the corridor. She passes doors, all closed. At the end of the corridor there is a room, and in the room there is a chair facing the window, and in the chair there is a figure she cannot see clearly. She never reaches the room. She always wakes before she does. She has had this dream, this exact dream, for 30 years. She has never told anyone about it. Not her husband. Not the therapist she saw briefly during her residency. Not her mother. Not her sister. Not a single person in the world. It is simply something that belongs to her, in the way that internal things do. Unspoken. Habitual. As ordinary to her now as the sound of her own breathing. And yet, on the recording from the 4th night, Marco had said, a long corridor, windows with yellow light, the doors all closed. On the 5th night, late afternoon light, something gold about it, a garden outside. On the 6th night, a room at the end, a chair, someone in it, facing away. On the 7th night, his voice had been a little clearer, a little more present. He had said, she never reaches the room. She, not I, she. Elisa pushes open the door to Bay 4. The room is small and precise. Everything in it has a purpose. The ventilator stands at the head of the bed, its bellows rising and falling with the quiet industry of something that has been doing this for a long time and does not need to be watched. The monitors glow their steady green. There are no personal objects, no flowers, no cards. Marco's sister had asked if she could bring something, and Elisa had said yes. But nothing has appeared yet. Perhaps the sister is still deciding what the right thing would be. Marco lies perfectly still. He is not an imposing man. His face in repose is unremarkable. Middle-aged, weathered slightly, dark hair going to gray at the temples. There is a small scar above his left eyebrow that predates the accident. His hands rest at his sides on the blanket. Fingers slightly open, as though he has just set something down. Elisa pulls the chair close to the bed and sits. She places the recorder on the table beside him. She checks the monitoring readings out of habit. Everything stable. Everything as expected. She settles her hands in her lap. She waits. The ventilator breathes. The cardiac trace pulses across its screen. Somewhere far outside, the city moves through its night routines. Trams, footsteps, the occasional distant siren. But none of it reaches here. This room is sealed inside its own quiet. She thinks about the seventh night's recording. She never reaches the room. She had listened to it 17 times. She had checked the phrasing against every previous recording, looking for the moment when Marco had shifted from description to commentary, from witness to what? She did not have a word for what he had become on the seventh night. What she had was the feeling of it, the low, persistent unease of hearing yourself described from the outside, the strange dislocation of recognizing your own interior life in someone else's mouth. She had not slept well the night before. She had had the dream, of course. She always had the dream. But last night it had been different. Subtly, almost imperceptibly different. The kind of difference you might dismiss if you were not already paying very close attention. The corridor had been the same. The windows, the amber light, the closed doors. But the light, she thought, had been slightly brighter than usual. The garden beyond the windows slightly more defined. And when she had reached the end of the corridor and looked toward the room, toward the chair, toward the figure she never saw clearly, she had felt, for the first time in 30 years, that the figure was aware of her. Not turning, not moving, simply aware. The way you are aware sometimes of being watched, even when no one has moved. She pushes the thought away and focuses on the room around her. The ventilator, the monitors, the steady green light, Marco's hands on the blanket. She is not sure exactly what she is doing here tonight. She has attended to him every day, examined him, reviewed his scans, discussed his case with her colleagues, who have noted the vocalization with clinical interest and no particular alarm. There is nothing medically unusual about what he is doing. Patients in semi-conscious states produce speech fragments. It happens. The brain, healing or not healing, sometimes generates outputs that feel meaningful but aren't. She knows this. She is sitting beside him at 11:40 at night because she knows this. Then Marco speaks. It comes without warning, as it always does. A low sound beneath the ventilator's rhythm, almost indistinguishable from it at first, until the shape of words begins to emerge. His lips barely move. His eyes remain closed. His hands do not shift on the blanket. And yet the words come, slow and unhurried, as though he has all the time there is. The corridor tonight, he says, is longer. Elisa does not move. More doors, he says. And the light is coming from somewhere else now. Not just the windows, from inside the walls. She has not had this dream yet tonight. She will have it later, when she sleeps. She knows she will have it. She has had it every night for 30 years. But she has not had it yet. Whatever he is describing, he is not describing last night's dream. He is not describing any version of the dream she has had. He is describing a version she hasn't had. At the end, he says. At the end of the corridor. The room. A long pause. The ventilator breathes. The chair is turned around now, he says. The chair is facing the door. Elisa's hands tighten slightly in her lap. In 30 years of dreaming that corridor, the chair has never been turned. The figure has always faced the window. She has never seen its face. She has never even been close enough to try. And now, a man in a medically induced coma, in a quiet hospital room in Milan, is telling her that tonight she will. She looks at his face, still composed, still unremarkable, the small scar above his eye. His lips slightly parted, settling back into the stillness they always hold. He does not say anything more. The monitoring screens glow their steady green. The ventilator breathes its steady rhythm. Elisa sits for a long time in the amber spill of the bedside light, watching Marco breathe, and thinks about corridors, about light inside walls, about figures in chairs who have, without explanation, decided, after 30 years, to turn around. She thinks about going home. She thinks about lying down. She thinks about closing her eyes. She stays in the chair beside him until her shift ends at 7 in the morning, watching the green lines move across his screen, listening to the patient rhythm of a machine breathing for them both. She does not sleep. She does not dream. But when the morning light finally finds its way through the blinds of Bay 4, pale and northern, nothing like amber, she notices something she cannot immediately explain. Marco's hands on the blanket are no longer at his sides. They are folded now, one over the other. The way you fold your hands when you are sitting in a chair, waiting. Thank you for listening to Stillwater Chronicles, where even the quietest rooms can hold the loudest secrets. If this stillness stayed with you, if the hum of those machines settled somewhere beneath your thoughts, then let it remain a little while longer. Some corridors, after all, we have always been walking, and some doors were never really closed. Rest now. We will be here when you wake.